And welcome back to the Film Reel Cast. As usual, I'm Stuart, your host. We have nearly finished Season 2 of Cobra Kai. This is Episode 8, called The Glory of Love. I've got a feeling we're going to get some Chicago. It's going to be 80s. So, before we get into this, remember, subscribe to this channel if you could. Leave comments, click on that bell, and you'll get notifications for every other podcast. I've got The Shield. I've got Season 1 of Cobra Kai already done on my playlist. Nearly done Season 2. I've got Would You Rather, and of course I've got The Mandalorian. And thanks to everyone who's watched that video. It's doing really well. I'm really proud of it. I love that series. It's so good. So, on with The Glory of Love, Episode 8 of Cobra Kai. So this episode starts classic 80s. It's Johnny, of course. He's having a dream. Some may say a wet dream about Carmen. And the dream, even his dreams are 80s themed and styled. He goes to her house, she answers the door, they start kissing. It then flashes to them in the dojo, sparring. Again they're kissing, they're rolling around, he's protecting her. And then she gets a can of Coors beer and she pours it down her top. True 80s style, where the men are dominant and the women are weak and they love strong men. And whilst this is going on, it's playing Whitesnake, Here I Go Again. And honestly, it's brilliant. It's so funny. It's so light-hearted. And it's a typical Johnny's dream. And as all bad just happens in dreams, when you get to the good bit, you always seem to wake up. Why is it? You could dream about you and some lovely babe together. And when you get to the good bit, and we all know what the good bit is, your alarm goes off or your dog barks and you wake up just at the good bit. And it's just so frustrating and it's so funny and typical. And that's what happens in this dream. It's a really good, funny opening scene. So Daniel's role throughout this episode is to be in the doghouse. Reason being, remember from the last episode, he was too busy training the students following the threat from Kreese. So he's in the doghouse with Amanda. And typical. We've all been there. If you've been in a long-term relationship, you do something wrong and it's like the enigma. It's like the hardest puzzle in the world to break down what the problem is from the other half, from what the woman wants to what she actually gets back is completely different. Men are simple creatures. We need to be told what the problem is. Daniel's not got a clue. And if he's got a general gist of it, he hasn't got a clue of how to resolve it. And you see through this, he wakes up on the sofa, pretends to his mum that he's ill. She knows his score. And he goes to see Amanda, buys some really expensive sushi, and tries to make up for it. Again, it's not what she wants. And so he goes to his mum, and they reminisce, and you get the scene of them together, of looking at old photographs of times when things were really happy and simple. And he sees a photograph of Amanda and himself when they opened up this garage when she was pregnant, and it flashes back to them in a car together. So what he decides to do is recreate that scene, and they do go in the car and they play some Chicago again. I love the 80s, the classic music they play in this. For people of my generation, you go back to the 80s. It's always a go-to for films, for music, for fashion. It's when we had old style like Walkmans and computers that we put tapes in rather than discs. So it's got that nostalgia, and he plays that music and it works and they make out. In a car, in the showroom. I just hope that car got valeted and wiped down before they sold it to the next member of the public who wanted to buy it. But things are good for Daniel and he's gotten back on track. He's broken that magic code of trying to unlock a woman of what she wants, of what will actually make her happy when she's got the hump, and doesn't tell you the reason why. We've all been there. If you've not been there yet, you will be. And don't expect to understand what they're thinking, because it's just so confusing. So good luck to anyone. But Daniel is back in the good books. And we go back to Cobra Kai, where Johnny breaks the news that Kreese is not coming back, which confuses everyone, because for a couple of episodes he played a major part, taking lessons. Remember, taking him to Coyote Canyon. So he tells them that Kreese did start it, but just because he started it doesn't mean that he needs to lead it still. And that the writing on the wall is in black and white. And karate isn't black and white, and life isn't. And he says at the moment, Cobra Kai is in the grey in the middle, where some situations you use your head and you have mercy on people, and it's nothing wrong with that. And the students are surprised by this, but it's a really good move. It's the right way to go for Johnny. And he seems a lot happier without Chris looking over his shoulder. And it's a good move, and it's a good way forwards. But what I can't understand, what really surprised me, is Miguel is a person of principles. And we've seen that beforehand. And he does what's ever right. He does follow the right path. But when Hawk walks in, he's sitting with Tory on the floor, and they've agreed to go out to like an 80s disco where Tory's working. And we'll go through that bit later on. But when he walks up to Hawk, he apologises for kicking his ass at the competition. And Hawk says, don't worry, it was in the forest, you were my enemy just for a day and we're friends now. But what he seems to overlook, and I know he's dealt with it in the forest, but he actually did break in still to Mr. Miyagi's dojo and steal that Medal of Honor and cause all the shit and all the fallout that's happened. And through that, Samantha hates Cobra Kai even more. But he's willing to forget it. It just doesn't make sense. And a lot of things in this don't make sense. And again, I don't know if it's suffering through what other episodes do. When they come to a climax, they tend to run out of ideas, or they try and push everything or to a quick climax, or just resolve things when it doesn't make much sense of how it was resolved. Because he's forgiven him too quick for breaking in and stealing that Medal of Honor. And now they're back to being best friends again. And the relationship between him, Tory, him with Robbie and Samantha also is a bit of a strange one. Because you see them on the mat talking about arranging a date. And they're both happy, they're both kissed. They are a couple together. So why does he keep having those thoughts of Samantha that maybe he can win her back? It doesn't make sense. He's either with Tory or he's not. Or he just dumps her and goes for Samantha. But he just wants everything at the moment. And no one's got a right to date anyone. It just doesn't make sense. It's a bit nonsense. You're better than that, Miguel. You are better than that. And love seems to be the problem here. Because we see Robbie and Samantha have obviously been quite busy finding various places to kiss. They're at the Miyagi-Do and they're kissing. And you even hear them say, look, we're running out of places to find some private time. So they're clearly both on heat and they both want it. But they don't want to tell the family yet, because obviously that would ruin any private time they could actually get together, because they know they'd both be at it like rabbits. So Johnny plucks up enough courage to ask Carmen out. And when he's about to do it, she comes around the corner with this English guy. And his English accent is something like from Mary Poppins with Dick Van Dyke. It's really way over the top. And you can instantly tell on your dick radar that he is a proper fucking 12-inch idiot. And due to being defeated just on this occasion, he asks Miguel for help. So he uses an app, a dating app. Remember, Johnny has no idea of any kind of technology whatsoever. As he says, his idea is just bumping into a girl and then just wooing her over with how macho you are. Doesn't matter about conversation, doesn't matter about brains or comedy or anything like that. It's just about how manly you are. That's what women want. Sadly, those days are gone. So he embraces technology and he gets this app and he meets various women in the bars. And it's a comical scene. And it reminds me of the scene from 40-Year-Old Virgin when they're speed dating, when he just ends up meeting a bunch of freaks and it doesn't work out. He even meets the woman from the first one when he hung the TV on the wrong wall. And again, he calls her a bitch. It's great. But he does bump into this, or she bumps into him, this other lady, just by chance. Often romance works that way, and they do hit it off. But before that, he's sending a text to Ali. Remember Ali from the original, Elizabeth Shue? He's sending a text message. And it's so funny. It's so Johnny, the message he types. Have a look at this. And as the lady bumps into him, he presses the send button. So that is a seed sown for later on, which is going to be really good. I'd love Elizabeth Shue to come back in this. She was a really lovely character. And she's still great now when you look at her in things like Curb Your Enthusiasm. She's still doing really, really well and looks amazing. So he hits it off with this lady. And then he sees Carmen's other half. So he looks over and he sees the Dick Van Dyke English character, Carmen's other half, sitting in a bar with a mate, hitting on other women. And remember, Johnny really likes Carmen. This is never going to end well. And he follows him out to, because the gents aren't working, outside the back of the bar. And he does what he does. He kicks shit out of the guy for being a scumbag. And good on Johnny. And this guy is a complete pussy. And he gives in and just says, I don't want anything to do with it. And Johnny goes back at the end and he meets Carmen, who's waiting for this Dick Van Dyke idiot. And I think they hook up. So the climax really evolves around like an 80s themed roller disco. Remember, it's got to be 80s. 80s is the best. And everyone goes there. Robbie goes there. Samantha goes there. Tory's working there. And Miguel goes to meet her. And you know you're going to get this clash. Already at the kind of the social club when they went for rich kids, that Samantha and Tory clashed already, resulting in Samantha getting thrown into a table of food, Beverly Hill Cop style. So they're both having conversations with each other. Miguel approaches Samantha and they have a conversation as if they're going to apologise and try and work their differences out, which doesn't make sense because earlier on when they met at the disco, Miguel was kissing Tory in front of Samantha. So it's never going to happen. Why they can't just get on with things and just move on, I don't know. It's clear to everyone that Samantha is with Robbie and Robbie likes Samantha. Fair play to Robbie, doesn't get involved, which I'm surprised about because he's pretty hot-headed. But I suppose what Miguel's got, and I'm surprised it wasn't brought up here, is the Medal of Honor. I don't know why Miguel didn't mention to Samantha, because that would have been what anyone else would have done to score points, which is what it's about, is say to her when they were queuing up, I brought the Medal of Honor back. I hope your dad was happy and I did the right thing. That would have him scored major points and she would have questioned Robbie as to how it was found in the garden earlier. Because Dimitri found it in Miyagi-Do's garden and it was just by chance and Robbie gave that shocking look as if like, wow, things are better now. It was terrible. But just with telling Samantha that, he could have scored some huge kudos and some major points. And from watching them talk, that green-eyed monster, which is jealousy, which we've all got inside us, takes over Tory. And as Samantha and Robbie are walking along, she barges her. Just like you can see in the pictures there. And she goes flying on the floor. Then she pushes Tory back, who bangs her head. Of course, such is life that only people see the second act. Which results in Robbie and Samantha getting chucked out of the roller disco. Of all things to get banned from, a roller disco. That has got to be one of the low points in anyone's life. But they do get banned. And Miguel only sees the second act. And sees that Samantha is the baddie. And she comes out the enemy in this. And the victor is again Tory. That's going to come to a head. Possibly we've got 2 episodes left. It's still got time. Or in season 3. So we're left with that episode with Johnny hooking up with Carmen, which is brilliant. Celebrations. Miguel and Tory getting it together and coming out the perfect couple with Robbie and Samantha being the baddies in this. So it was okay as an episode. Wasn't great. But it's just, some of it seems lazy writing to me. And it's, I don't know, I just love the action. I love the 80s. At the moment, Johnny is a really interesting character. Things are going really well for him. And I love to see him on screen. But Miguel, apart from needing a haircut, just doesn't seem very interesting. I like it when 2 people are clashing. It was good last week when Hawk and Miguel were fighting. And you had that. And you knew at some point it was going to kick off. And you kept watching it for waiting for that to happen. In this episode, I didn't get that feeling. So on with episode 9. That will come up shortly. But in the time, please subscribe to this channel. Remember, there is so much to watch. Subscribe, share and like. And leave your comments. I'd really be grateful. I always reply. If there's anything else, I'm at thefilmreelcast@gmail.com. And I'm on Twitter as well at thefilmreelcast. So there's loads of ways we can chat. And just find out what's going on, what you're watching. Tell me. I always like to know. Okay, I'm Stuart. This is the Film Reelcast. And I will see you very soon.